What's happening, folks? Welcome back to Celtic Fans TV. It is the return of the post-match pint here at Malone's in Glasgow after Celtic 6, St Mirren 0. If you're in the area, we're here on Sucky Hall Lane. Great music down the stair, great beer. What more could you ask for? I'm joined by Kenny today. Kenny, 6 wins on the spin, and another really, really impressive performance today. What did you make of it?
Normally, in a home game against a side like St Mirren, the big threat is, do they come with a low block? Does it get stuffy? Do they frustrate you and perhaps escape with something? But the art of the low block is now a dead art against this Celtic side. The speed and intensity in which they're playing at, with playing one defensive midfielder, when we're now attacking a low block with 6 offensive players, and then with our 2 fullbacks playing high, they just can't cope with it. They can't cope with the rotation of the forwards. They can't cope with the fullbacks coming inside. It's just causing all sorts of problems. And another background concern I had, I thought, was, well, can they really keep up this level? The play is so intense. Can they keep it going for a 6th game in a row? Is there going to be some sort of drop-off? You would think that may happen at home to St Mirren where they can afford to do it. But no, they were so professional and so drilled that they just went for the jugular for the off. So pleased. Thinking about individuals, Turnbull is just growing every single game it passes. He's grown into an animal of a player, dominating the whole front line. Abada will come to talk about him, I'm sure, but just so direct, so much speed. You get everything you can ask for in a winger. And yeah, just delighted to keep that momentum. I think really what you want in that game, you want to convince him when you want the points, you want no injuries, you want to give a bit of rest to guys who are going to be under pressure on Thursday. And we got all of that. So a brilliant continuation of what has been an incredible turnaround.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just as well we've got a roof in here, by the way, because if not, I think we'd be swimming delivering you this post-match pint. You touched on it there, the tempo and the intensity of the attacking play in recent weeks. I know you haven't been on for a few weeks, but it's been brilliant. And today again, you can see that right from the word go, the first half is massive for us. And as I say, the speed of the attacking play, the tempo, and the movement all across the front line today. I mean, it's 4-0 at half time. It could have been 6 or 7 at half time.
Yeah, I mean, they've not done themselves any favour with the red card. Their keeper had a few sort of errors in the first half, but it's the intelligence of it as well. There's a system that, you know, that's not just built on luck and telling people to go out and play with freedom. That's built on a structure that Postecoglou's put down. Yeah. And when Postecoglou was first appointed, you and I had some discussion about, well, the media suggests it's 6 months for these ideas to take hold. It's taken less than 6 weeks for these ideas to take hold and transform the side. The last time I remember seeing a transformation like this was when, at the start of Brendan Rodgers' era. And they struggled a bit in Gibraltar, but then they came out in a league game against Motherwell, and you just were amazed by what had happened. It is of that ilk. I think it, in an offensive sense, is exceeding that. We've had over 100 shots, over 100 attempts at goal in the last 3 domestic games. Yeah. That's almost an attempt at goal every 2 or so minutes over a 3-game period. That must be unprecedented. The statistics that are coming out in an offensive sense are just frightening.
It is absolutely remarkable. And interesting that you say that, because I was talking with one of the guys just outside the stadium today as well, and he mentioned the transformation between Dyla and Rodgers, and the comparisons here are easy to see, because you have a situation last season where you think, who of that squad would you want to keep? We thought that so many of these players had come to the end of their cycle that we had to move a lot of them on. But as you've seen with Dyla to Rodgers, you're seeing again that these players last season, and we had a lot of discussion last season, it got to stages where it was so bad that people said, well, the players have to take some responsibility for this. It can't all be on the manager. But you change the manager, and all of a sudden, these guys who you thought, get him out the door, he's finished, he's done, they're totally revitalised again.
Yeah, and look at the togetherness that appears to be in the side. I mean, Ralston, I can't believe it when we gave Ralston a contract. I was stunned. But, you know, it's been completely just. We don't need a second right back now. We've now got one in. We've got 2 there that we can be happy with. Yep. He's probably the prime example of how togetherness and good management and just a structure can transform a player. But it's happened all over the park. Callum McGregor looks like a new man. I mean, he's just anchoring everything. He's a Rolls Royce of a player. And we'd lost him for 12 months. He'd been swallowed up by all of the problems last season. So all over the park, Joe Hart, I think, has made a big difference to the chemistry of the whole side. I mean, we saw midweek the leadership skills that he's taken on with 5 minutes to go under pressure in a European game, trying not to concede a goal, and he's out orchestrating things in the centre circle as a goalkeeper. A complete reverse of when we've had a husk of a keeper for the past 12 months. Yeah. So all over the park, I think the psychology has changed, but it's not just psychology, it's intelligent technical football that's been laid down with the manager's brain.
Yeah. And you can really see the work that's been put in training ground and you can see that the players are carrying out the instructions they've been given. And I think with every good performance and every win they get from it, their belief in that message will grow and grow. And recruitment is obviously a massive part of the rebuild that we've all been talking about for months and months now. When Leela Bada came in, he was another Dudu Dahan signing.
Yeah.
We were all a bit sceptical.
Yeah.
It was a relatively big fee for a young player at 19 years of age. And I thought on Wednesday, you could see that kind of inconsistency that you get from a winger at times. But today, he was absolutely electrifying, particularly in that first half.
What a signing. Like you, totally sceptical because of the route of his signing. Also a bit unsure when we need to strengthen all over the pitch. Why are we buying a right winger when we've got young Karamoko and James Forrest?
Yeah.
It's the one area where we've got strength. But that was a complete misjudgment because he's added a new dimension. He's so... Frimpong flatters to deceive. Brilliant, easy on the eye. But the number of assists, the number of goals, very limited. He is the polar opposite. He'll just go right at you. Yeah. And it's not just his running style and his directness. He's so intelligent when he puts his balls into the box. He'll wait for a man to commit. The shape of the balls into the box are lovely. The timing of everything, whether he cuts it back or plays a ball deep, everything seems to be on the money. And for £3 million and a 5-year deal, I think 5-year deals are important for us. We've got a guy in on a 5-year deal yesterday. We've struggled with 4-year deals because people take a year or so to bed in, they have a good season, and then you need to sell them because you don't want to avoid the last year of the contract. That 5th year's important. And for a 19-year-old to come in and perform the way he has from foreign shores, is just it just thinks that there's a longevity to what we're doing. Yeah. This isn't a flash in the pan. He's going to be around for years.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the thing that impresses me about Abada, aside from his directness, which I keep talking about, is that like all of the attacking players just now, the movement is so fluid. I think today, the second goal, we work it. I think it starts on the left-hand side, but it comes in the middle and it's quite tight the way we were used to seeing last season, where we would just come to nothing, we'd be keeping the ball and doing nothing with it. But the movement across the middle of the pitch and from the left-hand side gave Abada the space. And as you say, every time he gets the ball, he is going directly at the fullback. And that left-back for St Mirren today, I almost felt sorry for him because it must have been a horrible shift for him.
Yeah, and he also comes inside a lot. Sometimes you look up and he's in the number 9 position, and I think he was like the leading goal scorer in Israel, or one of them, when we signed him. So he's got an instinct for goal. You know, he could probably play through the middle if you were in a bit of a striker crisis and you wouldn't have an issue.
Yeah.
So he's very intelligent, and that must have been what Postecoglou saw in terms of the desire to sign him, because he seems to favour players that can play in multiple positions so they can handle the rotation of his system. Yeah. And that's what we're seeing the benefit of, all that movement.
We saw Edward start again today. I think Vogt's dropped out. Kyogo goes to the left-hand side to accommodate Edward. What have you made of Kyogo in the last couple of weeks since you haven't been on, but Edward's performances in recent weeks, because we've all talked a lot about his body language and the sort of effort. The speculation around his future isn't going to go away, but I think when when Kyogo's playing beside you, you can't shirk the responsibility to work hard.
A telling thing about Eddie, I think, was in the Dundee game where he started to smile. And it's the first time I've seen him smile in about a year and a half. Now, even when he was at his peak, Eddie, he didn't smile very much because that's just his demeanour. But I think the crowd getting back, the crowd were singing his name, that chant we have for him, full flow. And that will make him feel at home again. I think he is probably one of the key players that was influenced by the lack of support in the stadium. I'm entirely convinced his head's here and he's given us 100%. I'd still pause on that, because there's so much speculation around his future. His goal rate is okay, but it's not what he can do. And some of that magic that we're so used to seeing him produce all the time seems a bit sparse. But he's certainly given us a pivotal point up front, and I think Kyogo is almost revitalising him to some extent. Kyogo is just incredible. I mean, he had a bit of a quiet game today, but his speed and brain is just off the charts relative to the way we've been playing. And he can play outside in that outside left position. He puts nice balls into the box. But I'd be tempted, maybe looking ahead to Thursday night, to bring Kyogo into the centre and just play him right off the shoulder and get those centre halves really worried about him, because I think that's where he really hurts people on the 9.
Yeah, absolutely. I think somebody turned the sprinklers on there, by the way. The rain is absolutely chucking it down. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with the team selection on Thursday night. But to get us back to today, Turnbull gets a hat-trick. You mentioned him at the start. He looks right at home playing for Celtic. I think last season we've seen a player who stood out in a poor team. He had a little bit of a, could say, shaky start. The first couple of games this season, he didn't quite look at the level from last season. But playing in front of a full Celtic Park, which he didn't do at all last season, he just looks right at home. And the quality today, I mean, that first goal was terrific.
Yeah, I think you're seeing the growth of someone really special. I mean, when he came to us, he put in a brilliant shift from Motherwell, but he hadn't played that many games. He then had that big injury. He came back and hit the ground running with Celtic, but he wasn't very experienced. But you can see all the talent he's got. Now you're seeing him grow into a player that can really play at a top level in Europe.
Yeah.
And we saw that during the week. And his mentality is excellent. Not even last season, when everyone was getting dragged through that horror of a campaign, he was the shining light. It didn't affect him. He's scoring free kicks. He's taking balls in. He's showing confidence. And he may well be the player of the year, in 7 or 8 months' time, because he's that important to us. And it's not just... Rodgik's a lovely luxury going forward. McGregor's brilliant holding things at the back line. He does a lot. Yeah. He can pan that whole area, and he's key. He's going to be absolutely key for the rest of the season.
We've got a massive week coming up, obviously. We go away to Alkmaar, and then we go to Ibrox. Sterner tests, you would imagine. I think the qualification that some people have made with these games is that we haven't really been properly tested yet, and there might still be a question mark defensively and in transition sometimes, but there's no doubt that we could scarcely be in better form going into the games.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've kept something like 4 or 5 clean sheets in these 6 games, so it's maybe overstating it, the defensive concerns. That's been said. It was clear we got away with one, keeping a clean sheet during the week there.
Yeah.
I'm a bit worried about Starfelt. That might sound a bit negative because we've just spent $4.5 million in somebody and they need time to settle. I do accept they need time to settle, but he's not very imposing. He appears to be a bit error-ridden. It might be in 2 or 3 months' time he's excellent, but he may not be excellent during the week. And I think during the week, he's got a big decision to make. Naturally, you would think, well, let's give a bit of protection. Bring in McCarthy, was possibly injured, but maybe bring in Sorrell, play with 2 defensive central midfielders, keep things tight and protect the 2-0 lead. I don't think he can do that. I don't think he can disturb the chemistry of what we're doing. I think we're going to go through during the week if we score. I think if we draw a blank up front and during the week, I'm not sure that we'll actually go through. So I would go with what we've got in terms of an offensive shape. The defence, we've made looks like an excellent recruit at right back this morning. We need support in that central area. Whether or not someone from the League of Ireland is something that's really going to get the fans off their seat, I don't know. But I think the recruitment has been really good in this window. So we need to trust that recruitment process. And yeah, I think a little bit of solidity in the back line, and we could be winning the league. There's no doubt from middle to front that's a league winning team based on what we saw in the last 6 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think, looking at Thursday, it's not the manager's philosophy really, is it, to go and sit in. He's made it very, very clear that we're here to play football and attack for the word goal. He doesn't want us to take a foot off the pedal at any time. So I expect us to approach that game on Thursday the same way we've been approaching all the games recently. Yeah,
I mean, that's his style throughout his whole career. He'll always score one more goal than the opposition, and his focus is on attack and play. Now, that sometimes can make you become unstuck. That doesn't always work. You have to have a structure at the back. But I think the goalkeeper's vastly improved.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes a huge difference in isolation, that one position. I think Welsh has grown into someone who last season I would have considered a squad player. I'm not sure I would now. I think I would consider him a starting 11 player if he keeps going the way he's going. Yeah. Greg Taylor, I think, could do with being improved at left back. But we're not too far away. We're probably 2 signings away from having a really impressive backline. So that's far from something that's too distant. So yeah, I expect him on Thursday to go out pretty gung-ho again, go for it. I think we get 1 goal and it probably gets us over the line.
Yeah. And you think about the big domestic game, obviously the derby next week. Everything kind of pointing towards us being in great form, them not being in so great form in these games often goes out the window, we know that, but we would be naive to think that this journey the team is on is going to constantly go like that. We're going to have dips, and there's no doubt that next week it'll be tough regardless of what the form of both teams is like. Yeah,
and we've got no fans, they've got a full house. I mean, all of these things play a part. We've got a lot of players that have never played in that type of fixture, and it is unique. Yeah. You can come in and settle well at Celtic, but you can still get a shock in a game like that.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty confident. I don't think there's anything to worry about going forward. We're going to hurt them. They're going to really struggle not to keep us out. I can see us scoring a couple of goals. I really don't doubt that. The only question mark remains, will we be able to shut them out in a controlled way? And that does remain a question mark. It would be ignorant to sit here and say we definitely will. But I tell you what, after that Hearts game, we had some commentary around this, and I think we all thought in our mind we're going to be at least 6 points behind after the Ibrox game.
Yeah.
Possibly 8 because we're so disorganised. Now we're thinking we'll be a bit disappointed if we're not 3 in front. And that's a measure of what's happened in the last few weeks. I'm confident going into Ibrox. A little bit worried defensively, but, it doesn't matter if you can outscore them, and there's every likelihood we will based on what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, obviously, there's going to be peaks and troughs, and it's not all going to be up, as I said, but I think we're in great form looking ahead to that game next week. What do you think he'll do in midfield, both on Thursday and perhaps on Sunday? Because McCarthy wasn't in squad today, albeit, but McGregor, Christie, Turnbull, Vogic, I mean, they're all playing really well.
It's a nightmare for him, really, a good nightmare, but I think he needs to bring Rogic back in. He's been so integral to what we're doing, in the previous leg, in the previous games. I think he was rested today with a mind in mind that he was going to be playing during the week. So who drops out? It can't be Turnbull, it can't be McGregor, so it can't, probably not going to be a bada based on what he's done in the width he's bringing, so it's either Christie or Eddie. I think, given we need to play with a little bit more assurity in a defensive sense, Christie gives you a bit of press. He's got a bit of an experienced head in a deeper midfield role. He's probably be a bit more responsible in that regard. I'd take Eddie out, which is a bit of a shame on him because he has scored. He looked good in the last half hour today, but I think you take Eddie out. Kyogo comes right in and causes them real alarm and turning on that back line, and Christie goes wide left and Rogic comes in, and we just hit with that fluency that we've been doing the last few games, and we might well concede, but I'm pretty convinced we're going to score.
Yeah, you mentioned that, the confidence that we'll score because of the attacking verve that we're playing with just now. And I think the thing that really stands out is that this Celtic team looks horrible to play against, and not horrible to play against because we're kicking people up and down the way you'd usually associate that cliche, but horrible to play against because these opposition defences do not get a minute, particularly in the first 45, 60 minutes of the game. As soon as the ball goes dead, we're getting it back in play. If it's a corner, we're getting it down and playing a free kick. We're constantly on the move, and it comes back to, obviously, the video we saw of the manager on the training ground. It really sums that up. Like, we are going pedal to the metal for the word go.
Yeah, and I think Alkmaar were a bit surprised by that because that appeared to be their style of play. High press, high intensity. But we gave them it right back. And when you read some of the stuff from the Dutch media after the game, I think they were a bit surprised by the level that Celtic threw at them.
Yeah.
So look, I don't expect that to change. I think Postecoglou is of a mind whereby he uses the word complacency all the time. I was listening to his post-match interview in the car there, and he says, look, it might sound a bit ignorant that I say we've got a lot of improvement to do, but we do. And it's amazing to think that he thinks there's a lot of improvement still to come in this team. He won't let them play with that, they'll drop that intensity, and if he does, they'll be out the side because there are people, our bench is looking a bit stronger now.
Yeah,
I do expect that to continue, that level of quality.
Yeah, I'm really impressed with the manager and everything that he's saying because he keeps getting asked, even at this early stage. Again, you go back 3 weeks and you think about Tynecastle, the turnaround since then to the point where the manager has been asked questions like, you're playing really well right now, but how do you guard against complacency? And that short space of time is bonkers. You mentioned it already, Juranovic gets announced today, right back. How many more do you think we need and what positions? Because we don't have a great deal of time left. I think we thought another centre-half, and obviously the boy from Ireland looks like he might come in the next couple of days. Left back, but I don't think we've been linked with any left backs. There's still obviously speculation around Edward, but I mean, coming to the end of that transfer window, how many more bodies and in what positions do you think?
I think a risk for us is that someone comes in on the last day of the window and puts down 15 million for Edward, and the board, through no fault of their own, just have to accept it. Now, if that happened with Moussa Dembele, if you remember, last day of training, he gets pulled in, big bid, they have to accept, he downs tools, and we have to accept it, and he leaves. And that left us in a really vulnerable position that season.
Yeah.
I'm worried about that. That could happen again. Now, it appears they've been forward thinking around that because they're in talks with the top scorer in the Dutch league last season.
Guy.
A possibility that we're looking at in this bit. So it looks like they're thinking, but then they're going to need to be quite sharp there. They're probably going to need to take a punt and bring one of them in. And even if Edward doesn't go, okay, we've maybe overcommitted some cash, but make sure that there's some contingency there. So I think striker we need to look at. I do think we need to look at left back, but we've got Volleyball and goal in the books. I can't see us. He'd be on a reasonably heavy salary. Yeah. We've got Taylor there in front of him. They might get a loan. They might recognise that left back's an area to improve and get a last minute loan. I think they might do that, but it won't be a big transfer fee. So I think left back, striker, and centre half's so obvious. Yeah. Starfelt's not settled. He might well settle, but he's not going to settle between now and the end of the window to a point where we think we don't need another centre back. So we're going to need to make a call. Yeah. We're going to sign the boy for the Irish League. We'll need to see how that goes. But yeah, left back, striker, and centre back.
I think we should definitely, as you say, err on the side of caution. in terms of bringing bodies in, because for all we're playing brilliantly at the minute, we don't have a great deal of depth. That is the one thing that this core of players that are being used in this run of 6 wins, playing at such an intensity, there's not a lot of depth behind them to give guys a rest. I know we managed to do it with Rogic and Forrest today, but we do just need to sort out that depth. But Kenny, I want to just finish tonight talking about the entertainment that you're seeing going back to the stadium and watching the team, and how it's turned around from what we watched last season. I know that we weren't there in the stadium last season, but you didn't need to be there in the stadium to see that wasn't a Celtic team. This Celtic team looks like a proper football team.
Yeah, and it's hard to say we're back after 6 weeks, because it almost feels a bit, presumptuous, because it's not taken so long. And could it unravel the other way? I don't think it will. I think we're in the hands of a man who really understands tactically offensive play, who understands the club. Yeah. You see him, you can just sense the passion from him when he goes over to the North Curve at the end of a game. He gets it. He's got it straight away. And I felt that when he first came in. He just feels like a nice people fit for the club. Yeah. And I think if we get a bit more recruitment right at the back, I wouldn't. It maybe be wrong to say, well, we're favourites to win the league, but there's absolutely no doubt we're going to be there to the death. And I think we're in great hands. It's just nice to get back to a bit of normality. That empty stadiums were obviously hindering this side. Yeah. There's just no doubt about it. That plays part of it. I mean, it was a strange time. We've not even met in person for a year and a half.
I know.
I mean, you were like an online therapist for me last year, Paul. Really, that was all the only purpose you served, because it was so horrible. But we're back now, and I think it might feel a bit premature, but Celtic are back. And let's put a smile on my face and enjoy it, because I think it's going to be an exciting few months ahead, and hopefully a trophy-laden few months ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what we can take from it, that watching the team, you can really see the progress, and it feels like there is something that could be long-term and sustainable here. And the manager's doing great work, and you just talked about his fit with the club. I've heard a few people saying that, I don't know if it was a midweek game or last weekend's game against Hearts, where we took a corner and we went to go short and sort of kill time, and the camera cut to him, and he was telling the team, no, like, get it in the box and try and score another goal, and that just sums up everything.
Well, all the stuff Pep Guardiola's coming out when we appoint him, saying, this guy's got incredible aptitude for the game, all that high echelon man, and we think, well, can that really be true? It is true, and we've got him. And fair play to the board, actually. We've given them all sorts of stick. Yeah. They were under real pressure there when they were shafted from Howe, and they shouldn't have given him enough time.
Now we're relieved that we don't have Eddie Howe.
They pulled something out of the hat that no one else would have thought of. So, in the interest of balance, let's give Don Mackay a bit of credit for sticking his neck out, and it's been a success. Yeah,
absolutely. I think we're all relieved that Eddie Howe isn't in position after what we're watching from Postecoglou's Celtic. That is all we've got time for tonight. Like this video, comment with your own thoughts below. Please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and if you're in the area, make sure to jump in to Malone's bar as well. That's it, and we'll see you during the week for the build up to Alkmaar. Cheers.